Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wild Hearts at Work podcast. I am your host, Melissa Boggs, and this week we are going to talk a little bit about coloring outside the lines. I know that surprises you. My guest this week is Michelle Clarke with Empowerment Empires and the author of new book, Woo Woo for Women in Business. Michelle, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
We have so much to talk about. When we had our little, pre-podcast chat, I felt like we could go on for hours. So lots to share with our listeners today, but I want to start, with your permission, by reading something that you wrote on Facebook just a few days ago. So I'm going to read in Michelle's voice. Here we go. I am not normal, and neither are my clients. My clients are the big hitters, the strong, the elite. They are here to change the world, and they know it. They have battled, they have clawed their way out from under so many expectations to conform, to behave, to be normal. But Lord knows they were not born for normal. Baby, they were born for change. They are destined to change the world, to save the world, to shake it up, to shout in the face of blindness, of deafness, of follow the leaderness. They are the leaders of the light. And come what may, they will shine that light on the world. They will rise. They will change the way things are done, or they will die trying. They were not born for mediocrity. And in fact, they shake their heads, when they even have time to look up, at all the little ants scurrying about with their heads up their asses, complaining about the way things are. They just don't get it. They were blessed with can-do and grit. They wonder at the state of the world while still being determined to wake that world up and save it. They know that they are born for more. They know that they are born for change. And they know that come what may, they must rise. Michelle, when I read this, I felt so seen.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, as someone who works with this caliber of people and the type of people that you would speak of in this way, you kind of have to be one of those people yourself.
Yeah, I'm full wattage out there crazy. I didn't used to be. I used to hide it very, very deeply. I don't anymore. And that's my whole purpose, is to drag other people out into the limelight.
I love it so much. I love it so much. So as a kid, maybe you were still hiding it, but was there a point when you knew that you marched to a beat of a different drum?
Yeah, really early on. It's really quite funny because, I mean, I've been spiritual and psychic all my life, and honestly, everyone is born connected. It's just that it gets beaten out of us, and we learn to be embarrassed by it, so we dumb it down. And I always thought that it was fairly normal. In fact, I astro traveled into my parents' room at a very early age, and they thought that I died, and it was my ghost visiting them or something. So I guess I didn't know I was abnormal then, because it was just normal to me. But when I got to kindergarten, and I mean, I've always been able to talk to plants and animals, and like, I'm full on woo woo, right? But you can be full on woo woo and successful in corporate and in your own business as well. That's the beauty of it. But I pretty soon realized that I wasn't normal when my friends were picking all these daisies, and I said, oh, the fairies just want you to leave some of them, like, because they're like, they want to get out of the sun, and it's kind of where they live. Well, they didn't think that was very funny, and they forced all the daisies into my mouth. So, yeah, I knew pretty early on that it was unacceptable to be talking about being weird.
So you start to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And sounds like you did that for a very long time. So, what did it look like and what did it feel like to hide it, for one? And then we'll get to the good end of the story in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is important to talk about the bad end of the story, because it really freaking hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hope you appreciate how I'm toning down my swearing. It's difficult.
We can swear. No, we can absolutely swear. Yes, we can. So don't tone it down. Go for it.
So I think it's important to talk about that part of the story, because if we don't acknowledge it, we can't actually move beyond it. So it's kind of like a glass ceiling, we get to smash it and just move beyond it when we actually talk about it. And it hurt. It squashed me. I found it difficult to be around other people. It was exhausting being around people, and it is for so many empaths, because we have to hide who we truly are, and that takes energy and effort. So that's why we don't want to be around so many people. But if we can just be who we are around those people, it's not exhausting anymore. So I honestly spent a lot of my childhood alone. I just used to hang out with my horse all day long. Like, I'd literally get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, ride my horse until 6 o'clock at night, and then come home. So yeah.
Amazing. I mean, it's not great, but I love that you found solace in animals, and and I think it's amazing to look back at that and then see where you are now, because that's the last thing that you're doing right now is hiding.
Yeah.
What was the turning point? I mean, what was the moment that you said, I can be myself, or was there one? Maybe it was just gradual.
It kind of was really quite gradual, and I turned off my spiritualism for a very long time, but there comes a point where it just won't shut up anymore. And when you have space in your life, that's when you can actually hear the whispers a whole lot louder. And I went and lived in Australia when I was 18, and bought my first business. It was a wild ride, I tell you. But I lived in the outbacks of Australia, like literally the closest shop was a half-hour drive away, and that was just like a little local dairy. And so I had a lot of space to myself, and I kind of started getting back into my spiritualism, but I was still quite young, so I kept stuffing it back down. And it wasn't until I had my daughter, when I was, how old was when I had my daughter? I think I must have been 26 or 27 when I had my daughter. And it kind of does something, like it reawakens you, and you realize that you have to become this amazing person in order to be amazing for your child. So it cracks something open. So it really came back then. And that's when I really started to be seen, but I realized that the place that I was living in wasn't accepting of it. So I actually moved out to the country at that point. I moved back out to the country so I could evolve more into who I was. And I was working corporate, so I was kind of almost leading a double life. And this probably won't shock you. I got fired for being psychic.
Oh my goodness.
Where I was the boss. I was the boss, and I got fired. Well, I mean, I was the manager. I got fired for being psychic, and then I went into another corporate role that was very accepting of everything spiritual, and that was an amazing experience.
So let's go there for a second, because that's a big part of what we talk about on the podcast, is how those of us who, are different, and want to be different and want to embrace that, can be opportunities, not obstacles, for the places that we work. And so I guess first, is there more that you can tell us about that company that was so accepting, and what that did for you professionally and personally?
It really healed my heart. Like, I tried to use my spiritual gifts in the other place, but they just weren't ready to accept it. And the lesson, and please hear this lesson so you don't have to go through it. If people aren't accepting of it, you're not going to be able to change their mind. Even if you think you've changed their mind, they're still of the same opinion still. You might as well just go and find your tribe somewhere else, because it's just painful, right? It's just pushing water uphill.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to the place, I always knew that I was amazing, right? But when I went to this new place and they allowed me to flourish and be my spiritual person and use all those spiritual gifts to actually lead what they were doing in business. And I was the manager there. And the previous people that employed me told this new place not to employ me, and they still employed me. How crazy is that? So not only did they wanted to ruin my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty yucky, actually. God, it is yucky when you talk about it. But the new place, they employed me and let me grow. Like, they gave me the space, and like, they honestly healed my heart. I will be forever grateful to them. They're the most amazing people. And of course, because they allowed me the space to be who I was, and they allowed me the solitude. They wanted to give me the big front office, with all the glass and stuff. And I'm like, I want the back office. I don't want to be around lots of people. I want to come out and be with people, but I need a place that I can actually retreat to. I don't want people looking in on me all day. So they allowed me the space, and that allowed me to grow their business. I took them from the lowest government ranking to the highest government ranking in a year.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing things for them, and they did amazing things for me. They healed my heart and showed me that it was okay to be me. I worked for them for years and years and years.
I love that. So does that mean that your advice to leaders when working with, someone who has a little wildness in them, colors outside the lines. And that can come, by the way, in so many different forms. I mean, that can be, spiritual gifts all the way to, I just see this process and I want to do this process in a completely opposite way that it's ever been done before. There's so many different ways to be different.
Exactly. Because if you do things in the same old way, you get the same old results. And that's where corporate gets stuck. They're trying to get more business, but they're trying to get more business by doing business in the same old way. Well, it doesn't work. Like those renegades that you have inside your corporate, they are the people that are going to grow your business. Let them go wild. Like hand them the reins and go, right, here is this project. You get to completely and utterly do it your way, but you have to let them completely and utterly do it their way. And if they flunk and fail out, well, cool, then don't give them another project, right? But don't give them a project and then go, oh, but not that, but not that, but not that. Like just let them completely and utterly try it. I promise you they will get the better results. And if you take those renegades that like to color outside the line and you squash their creativity, eventually you squash their heart and their soul. They get really depressed. They either get depressed and suicidal, like I've seen this so many times in corporate, or they get depressed and they get burnt out. Either way, they're going to leave and not work for your company. You can't fire anyone these days, right? You're going to be stuck with a depressed person that's not doing any work. If you want to look after this renegade and grow your business, give them the reins. They're capable.
Yeah, that resonates so much. When I have had the opportunity to do that for other people, like it's incredible. I think sometimes the rebellion is simply believing in other people. Like even in working with working with clients and just in my own leadership, saying, no, why don't we give them the choice? Like, I'm actually working with a client right now that's considering allowing their folks to self-select into teams. Like, I'm going to decide this is the team that I want to be on. And the fear is, well, what if they pick the wrong team? Like, well, what if you pick the wrong team for them? Like,
Exactly.
What have you got to lose in believing in people that like people are going to be reasonable, rational, adult human beings? And to your point, and then some. Like people are always going to surprise you. Yeah.
And the thing is, if you make a mistake, you can you need to make a decision. And then if the decision's the wrong decision and it was a mistake, there'll be some learning from it and you just make a whole new decision. Like, I don't know why people are so afraid of making decisions.
Yeah, that's a great question. I ask myself that quite a bit, actually, because especially if you're calculated about the risk. I mean, that doesn't mean, that you like take huge risks on some multi-million-dollar deal, but you can build yourself up to taking those kind of risks, those big risks with people. Mm-hmm. So with the clients that you mentioned in will you tell me a little bit about that actually? Like tell me what kind of clients that you work with, what kind of people that you work with, and just about your work in general.
I work with those renegades, like those really different people. They can't color outside the lines, but they're trying to. Like they've gone, right, I'm sick and tired of corporate. I'm going to set up my own business. So oftentimes they're still working in corporate. So they've got a foot in both camps, which is the hardest part, right? The foot in the both camp is the hardest part. And so they're trying to bring what they learned in corporate and all the rules and the regulations and the way of doing things. They try and apply that to a solopreneur business. They just don't match up at all. And they're like, why is this not working? It's like, because you're now running a soul-led business, right? That was a multi-million-dollar corporate that had different structures. So they're kind of floundering around a bit. They know that they're good at what they do, but they're like, why am I not making any money? And a lot of them, when they come to me, aren't even paying themselves minimum wage. And by the time I've worked with them, even just for a couple of months, like they're at least up to minimum wage. I mean, most people double their income by working with me in 6 months, like easily. Some of them do it within a week. It just depends on how quickly we can get you past your own bullshit. But all of the women that I work with, I do work with some men, but my heart's with the woman because they like to dim it down. And I'm like, girlfriend, let's bring it out. So I drag it out of them. I kind of have a process. And that process is, first of all, I hold a mirror up for them. So I show them the bullshit stories that they're telling themselves. And I'm quite harsh with that. I'm like, story, no, reframe. Tell me why you're in that bullshit and let's get past it. And they're like, in the beginning, but they get past it. And then once they're past the bullshit, I hold the mirror back up and I'm like, see, without that bullshit there, can you see that shining light in your chest? Because I saw it the minute I started speaking with you. And eventually they feel it, like they really feel it. And they're like, oh my God, I've been this good all along. Why was I hiding it? I'm like, you're hiding it because you were frightened of letting your light out. You got taught that letting your light out leads to being daisies stuffed down your throat, So we've been frightened. So I bring it back out and I get these amazing messages. This beautiful daughter, I'm working with her mum, she sent me a message, like literally it was like 6 pages long. She's like, I can't thank you enough. Like my mum now sees the light in her. She knows that she's amazing. We've known it all along, but she finally gets it. It's snapped into place. And I'm like, that right there. It's exactly why I'm doing this, because these women are amazing. They just don't know it. And once they know they're amazing, they get really brave and they're like, rah, here I am. And they're all over the internet and they're doing lives. And, then we turn the dial up on their personality even more. Like I find the bits that they don't want to talk about and I make them talk about those, because those bits that we hide, that we're ashamed of, those are the bits that will actually call out our tribe. And then they're ringing me and they're like, Michelle, I just got 10 clients. And I'm like, of course you did, because you're speaking your truth, girlfriend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It strikes me, just the part that you said about, it ends up with daisy stuffed in your mouth, how frequently what we put out in the world is actually what we needed, right? And so I can't help but think that you're seeking out the other Michelles and helping them, because it's a way of healing yourself.
Always. Your wounds are always a gift to you. Like everything happens for us, not to us, right? I used to think that things happen to me, and I was in the whole victim mentality. But I know that things happen for us, and those tragedies, those things that happen are actually gifts, so that we can open up and heal that in other people. The trauma is always the medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. So shifting a little bit. So we've talked a little bit about, sort of where you came from and the work that you're doing now, and how we're helping where you came from. So looking forward now, in your work, or just maybe in the world, like, in the wake of the pandemic, although some of us are still very much in it, what are you the most afraid of? And then I'll ask you what you're the most excited about as well.
I'm honestly not afraid of anything. I honestly
Hell
think
yeah.
I think that what I know to be true is that whenever the world is ready to go through a massive, big energetic shift, like a change in thinking, like when we went from plowing the fields to working in the factories, then we went from working in the factories to being the information era, right? Like we're ready for the next step in our evolution. And before that happens, there's always a period of chaos. And I honestly believe that the pandemic, I refuse to say the C word, that the pandemic was actually a gift of chaos. So we've had the space to go, what is actually really important to me? And how can we operate this world in a whole new way? And it's a gift. So I'm not afraid of anything. I know that this was for a reason.
Beautiful. I feel the same way. I mean, I've talked a lot on this podcast about how this last 18 months has accelerated things that many of us already knew to be true, that were coming. And, we were hoping for them to come in 5 to 10 years, I think. And then, like you said, this pandemic has forced people to really take stock of their lives, their priorities. And then now we're sort of accelerating what was already coming. So what does that make you excited about?
It makes me excited about the future. Like so many people are waking up. So many people are realizing that they're empaths. Are like, I was an empath all along. And oftentimes when I work with people, I'm like, I only work with empaths. And they're like, I'm not an empath. I'm like, oh, you are. And they're like, I hate being touched. I hate being around people. And they hate it because they are an empath and they learn to turn it off. And then they're like, oh, I've been an empath all along. It's like, yeah. So I'm pretty excited that people are waking up. And once they realize they're an empath, they'll be able to tap into those empath skills, which means they can get results 10 times faster than everyone else. Like it's not something you want to turn off. It's something you want to turn up.
So will you tell us, for the listeners who are not familiar with that word, I mean, I think everyone knows what empathy is, but I know that's not what you're talking about exactly. So tell us what an empath is.
An empath is somebody that feels everything. and we feel it in different ways. Some people, like me, I'm a physical empath. So if you've got a sore right shoulder, I'm going to feel your sore right shoulder. If your heart is hurting because you had a fight with your cat last night, I'm going to feel your heart hurting. So oftentimes I'm like, oh, I feel this feeling. And I'm like, hang on a second, that's not even my feeling. So empaths can drown in feelings because they're like, I feel this. And I'm like, are you sure it's your feeling? Could be your boyfriend's feeling, could be your mum's feeling. So we need to learn to find ways to, to move those feelings through our body. Some empaths get pictures or colors or just a sense, like they can walk into a room and be like, oh, that person needs this. And so then they want to give to everyone. Empaths are overgivers all of the time because they feel everything. They want to make everyone feel better. So they like to rescue people, which is a really bad idea because whatever mess someone's got themselves in, it's the gift, right? It's the gift of chaos. We shouldn't solve it for them. Otherwise, they're just going to have another problem. Have you ever noticed that? Do you ever have a friend, like you solve a problem, there's another problem, you solve it, But if you didn't solve it, there would be no more problems because they'd get the lesson.
Yep, absolutely. So I know for a fact there are people listening right now who just went, oh my gosh, that's me, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So for those people, how is that a strength for them at work?
You need to first of all learn to cope with and harness it. So most of us can't feel our bodies, but if you really practice it, like, oh, I can feel my fingers touching the keyboards. Oh, I can feel the beat of my heart. Like, we're human beings. We're here with a body and feelings for a reason. But we've learned to turn those feelings off. You've got a headache, take a Panadol, right? Instead of going, oh, what does this feeling in my body have for me? Like, if my chest gets tight, instead of turning it off, I go, what do you want to tell me, heart? Like what's going on? Generally, if you've got a feeling in your head, it's because you're being taken advantage of, or someone's telling you bullshit, and there's kind of a bit of a smoke screen going on that you need to deal with. So look for clarity when you're feeling anything in your head. When you're feeling it in your throat, it's because you're not speaking your truth. When you're feeling it in your chest, it's because you've taken a step away from your soul's purpose. When it's in your stomach, it's generally fear. So that's a really good way to actually tap into what's going on in your body. But just take notice. Like, if you have a sore knee, go, oh, my knee hurts. Go, oh, I'm experiencing some different sensations in my knee. Hey, knee, what do you want to tell me? And just take a few moments. Close your eyes at your desk. You do it all the time, right? Like, just hide down behind your computer, close your eyes, tap into what the feeling is. And it might be like you actually need to get a new job, or you need to move in a new direction, or, knees are quite often to do with direction. So get used to feeling those feelings in your body. And once you get used to the feelings in your body, you can then use those empathetic skills, like what you feel in other people, to know instantly what will solve it. Like, I could be in a meeting in a corporate space and someone's chucking their toys out of the cot and going, your idea isn't going to work because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what does this person really need right now? So I go into my body to feel what their body is feeling, and they're feeling disrespected. So I can instantly win in this situation by going, and it might sound manipulative, right? But if I'm winning, they're winning. Oh, do you know what? I really loved, that project that we did last year, and you did this thing. I truly respected that you were able to see the stuff that we couldn't see. Do you feel like that's what's going on now? Do you feel like there's some stuff that I'm not seeing that you're seeing? And instantly that all the wind is gone. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. But you know what? I really love your idea, and I think we should do it. Right? Heard what they're saying, they're now going to accept it. So you can use it to win. But they're winning. They've now had that feeling resolved. Everybody wins.
Sure, absolutely. And you alluded to it a little bit, but what are some of the risks there?
The risks?
Mm-hmm.
There's no risks. As long as you learn to manage those feelings in your body, right? Like, they're happening all the time now anyway. So if you were to turn up your empathy skills without learning to flush feelings through your body, then you would get overwhelmed. Anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, it's because you're not flushing the feelings through your body. You're taking everyone's feelings, whether you know it or not, and you're holding them in your body instead of flushing them through. So that's why the space is important. Swimming, riding your horse, walking, color breathing, going to energetic healers, having a massage, like letting people touch your body, in a way that feels good for you. Things that will allow the feelings to flow through. Don't hold the feelings in, let them go.
All right. I don't know about all of you listeners, but I'm making a mental list as we're sitting here. All of the things that I need to do. I definitely do think that we're at a place, and again, I give the pandemic strangely a little bit of credit for this, but I think there's a lot more willingness in the work world to hear some of these things, right? I think we were forced to at least face the idea of burnout and of self-care throughout the pandemic. It could not be avoided even by the most, traditional stodgy organization. Like, you have to face that. I think we also had to face, diversity and inclusion, those types of things. So I think these are all like little steps that open us up a little bit more to looking at the human. And what you're talking about is just one fraction of the human. But the more that we can like open up all of these fractal doors to who we are, as whole human beings with all the gifts that we were given, the better off we are individually, but also the better off the companies are.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are you finding? So for your clients who are still sort of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, what are you finding are some of their impressions or experiences still in the corporate world at the tail end of this pandemic? Is it pushing them out the door more than maybe you would have expected?
It's kind of half and half. I expected that it would push them all out, but for some of them, they're like, I definitely want to be doing my purpose work for myself, because they want to be able to definitely make a bigger amount of money so they can have a bigger space in their life. Like, people are realizing after we all got locked up that space is so important, right? And they can't make that same money in the corporate world. I mean, God, I make 10 times what I made in corporate working for myself, right? And other people can too. But some of them are also like, but I kind of want to stay in this corporate because I feel called to change the way that this operates. So it's like some people are like realizing that they actually have a purpose to change things in there. So yeah, so it's quite interesting.
Wow. How do you think the pandemic has changed you?
It hasn't changed me a lot, to be honest, because I work from home. I live on a beautiful farm. Like, if I look out here, I see the beautiful harbour and 20 acres of farm and my little ponies eating down there. So I never leave the house. I have all my beautiful clients see me on Zoom. I work with clients all over the world. So I live a beautiful life. Like, it really honestly didn't affect me at all. I do own multiple businesses. So some of those have, get shut down every time we get locked up. So I guess it affects me, but I kind of just don't let anything affect me. So it really hasn't. And if anything, I'm busier in my business coaching because, of course, people are like, right, how do I pivot? So it's made me slightly busier. But yeah, no real changes for me. I don't consume any media. I haven't since 9/11. I was so upset that they were making like a movie and putting music to tragedies. I was like, I'm out. You mofos are just like stomping all over how, like, it's just not cool. So I haven't consumed any media since then. I go on Facebook only for my business. So I just don't really see any of the people hating on each other. Other people are telling me people are starting to hate on each other, which is really kind of upsetting me, because I'm either way, like, I have my own personal beliefs, but nobody else's beliefs are wrong, right? Like, do what feels right for you. Like, why are we not embracing that? Do what feels right for you. Like, we wouldn't say, right, everyone's now going to be bisexual. You must all be bisexual. Well, sorry, we don't get to tell people what to do. You get to choose who you love, and you get to choose what you do with your body as well. So whatever you choose to do is right for you.
Yeah, agreed. And we didn't say this early on, but you are in New Zealand. And as I recall, I haven't heard anything different. You guys are still in lockdown right now. Is that right?
Sure am.
But it's kind of wonderful that like you've built your life in such a way that, you, when not in lockdown, can reach the people that you would like to in person, but you also aren't required to. It's almost like the office that you described in that company, where it's like, you have created your really safe space for yourself. And I'm sure that has a huge impact on your ability to do your purpose work. You're not being pulled, to obligatory, I don't even know if I can say that word, out of obligation, do things that are really unnecessary to your purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have a couple fun questions that I ask a lot of my guests. They're kind of out of nowhere. So first one, what would your first boss say about you now? And it might be like you were a babysitter when you were 4. I mean, your first boss.
My first job, I was 12, and I worked in a cafe. I've always been a hard worker. In fact, I saved up $10,000 to pay for my private training when I was 16 and left school.
Oh my
So
goodness.
a ton of money. Yeah. So my first job when I was 12, what would she say about me? Oh, she really, really liked me. She really liked me. She didn't have any kids. So she really kind of took me under her wing. She'd be like, I'm not surprised that Michelle's doing this. I don't think she'd be surprised at all. She could see a light in me. Like she was super, super, yeah, she was really nice.
It is such a common answer. I've only had the opportunity to ask this of a couple of my guests, but they all pretty much say the same thing. And I think that's such a testament to we are who we are.
Yeah.
You know, like you've been Michelle since, you know, people were shoving daisies in your throat, and the world needs to come around a little bit, you know, to accept and appreciate that. And you need to surround yourself. We were talking a little bit earlier about finding your tribe, right? Like, don't bother with groups of people who don't value you for who you are.
That's fine.
So, next question. So we didn't know each other before. You're actually one of my first guests that we were strangers until we, you know, came to talk about the podcast. So Wild Hearts at Work was a kind of phrase out of nowhere for you. When you heard Wild Hearts, what image did that strike for you, or like what does that mean to you?
It's like, these are my people. I mean, wild hearts, right? Like wild to me means free, and heart means you know, you're heart centered. You're coming from a complete place of soul. I was like, oh yeah, I don't even need to read what you're selling me. Like wild heart tells me exactly you're my people already.
Oh, I kind of love that. Excellent. So tell us a little bit about what is going on in your work right now. I'm really just opening the door wide open because I want to talk about your book.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about the book. It goes on to Amazon tomorrow, Woo Woo for Women in Business. And let me tell you, I mean, I've written a few books. This one kind of had me shitting my pants a little bit because, I mean, I am woo woo, but I'm now putting the book out there for people to take, like the people that work with me obviously know that I'm woo woo and they want that, but I'm now putting the book out there for people that don't know me to review me and go, you crazy woo woo, but you know, like I'm opening myself up. So it's a little bit frightening, but whatever feels frightened, I run towards instead of walking slowly because let's just get it over with. So I'm pretty excited about it coming out tomorrow. I can honestly see it changing the world. I'm going to get interviewed on Oprah. If anyone knows Oprah, hook me up, please. She's my absolute idol. She's been my idol forever. I mean, now there is a brave woman, right?
Oh, for sure.
She had no real skills to go and do what she did, but she's like, I'm doing it. I can see myself doing it. I'm like, yes, bitch, yes.
Okay, so any listeners who have a tie to Oprah, hook Michelle up. Also, if you do, I'm looking for that same connection to Brene Brown, and they know each other. So like all four of us we could all get on there. Excuse me. But okay, so tell us a little bit more about the book without spoiling it, but like give us a little taster.
So it starts out with a chapter called I'm a Weirdo, Are You? And it basically explains how weird I am, which is what we've talked on here. And it gives you a strangeness quotient test. And then I help you to see the things that you got told off and closed down when you're a kid are actually the skills that are going to make your business or your career grow right now. So that's super fun. Then we dive into how to dial up the woo-woo and the empath. And then we talk about how to actually be successful using a success triangle. So it's basically success structures and systems. And then it's aligned actions, not all the busy work actions, not the to-do list, only aligned actions. So you can grow your business or your career in a couple of hours a day. And then energetics. And energetics is the woo-woo, really. Like nothing matters more than energy. And I talk about 3 different forms of energy and how you can apply them to your life to feel super amazing and make lots of money. Then it takes a really deep dive into, this is why I'm shitting my pants about the book. It takes a dive into, it's called Part C, and it's your global ramifications. But I basically talk about how crazy I am, how the world hums, and how I'm a 5th dimensional vibrational being. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
For those
wounds.
of you who are listening and you can't see her face the way that I can right now, she is both like giddy and also terrified, but like smiling ear to ear. And like just that energy alone is enough to make me want to buy the book, because for someone to be so incredibly lit up by their work makes me want to be a part of it. Like makes me want to read it and tell my friends about it and have you on my podcast.
Yeah. In the last chapter, I chucked in a part of the book that I wrote a very long time ago that tells empaths how to look after their energy with crystals and color and plants and all sorts of other things.
Love it. Love it so much. I'm so excited for you. And just again, like it's hard to describe how someone's energy would like draw you in this way, but you clearly have so much pride and so much vulnerability around this, being a bit of a Brene follower, we know that there is no courage without vulnerability and vice versa. And so the fact that you're putting out something that is so vulnerable to you personally, but also like we talked about earlier, like you're reaching out to the little Michelles, and not to minimize them, but just, the people out there like you or people out there like my listeners need these kind of books. Like they need to be seen, they need to be comforted and helped to heal, and they need to be encouraged. It's like this 3-step process. I see you, I comfort you, and now I just like unleash you into the world.
Exactly.
So I absolutely love that. And I'm so appreciative that you were willing to come on here and talk with me about yourself, about your clients and the book. Most of all, it's just it's energizing for sure. So Michelle, for people who are interested in finding you, how do people find you? We'll talk one more time about how they find the book. Let the world know.
So if you go to info@empowermentempires.com, that's my email address. You can talk to me personally there, or you can jump onto my website, same thing, empowermentempires.com. And to find the book, just go to Amazon and Google Woo Woo for Women in Business. No one else is going to have that book title ever.
Yes.
And the beauty of it is in launch month. I mean, like you can tell how excited I am about it. But I'm so excited about it that I've done something really crazy. I was just going to allow people that purchased it to go in the draw to win $2,500 worth of coaching with me. But I've actually decided to open up my entire online shop. So if you buy the book, all you've got to do is send me a screenshot of the book and the review that you leave for me on Amazon. And you get to go in the draw to win the $2,500 worth of coaching, but you also get to get any gift you like off my shop. And there's some great courses in there, like even like $500 worth of courses. You'd be crazy not to buy the book to get the gift.
That is super fun. Okay, say that one more time, like the condensed version.
Yeah, if you buy the book, you get a gift off my book, and you go in the draw a gift off my online shop, and you go in the draw to win $2,500 worth of coaching.
Amazing. So if people are sitting here saying, okay, so I'm intrigued by Michelle and I know a little bit about what she does, but how do I know if I'm the right type of client? Like what type of clients reach out to you?
Do you know what? I've never had, this sounds like I'm lying. I've never had a client that I did a discovery call with that didn't want to work with me. I've had some that I said, you're not ready yet. I want you to go and do this stuff and come back to me later. I think I'm so out there that I either push away the people that aren't for me automatically. Like they'd be like, ugh, like they just wouldn't even come to me in the first place. Like, yeah. So the people that I don't want to work with and that wouldn't be in alignment for me are the people who insist on sticking to the rules. The ones that are like, no, but it's always been done this way, so it must be done that way. Like there's nothing I can do to help you. If you want to stick with the rules, then I can't help you.
If you want to stick with the rules, you probably stopped listening to my podcast after the 8-minute trailer. So I don't think we're in any danger there. But amazing. All right. So we've got the email address, we've got the website, we've got the book, we've got the amazing book launch tomorrow, and then the book, I don't say book deal, but drawing and, the gift. So so much going on for you, Michelle, that I'm, again, so grateful that you were willing to come on and chat with me. I am sure that we will catch up again sometime in the future after the book comes out and the world changes and your life changes.
Absolutely. I'm coming over to visit you. Just wait till I'm out of lockdown. I'm coming.
Yes, coming to Denver all the way from New Zealand. I love it. But yeah, thank you again. And yeah, keep up with Michelle, because I have a feeling we have not seen the end of this bright light. All right. So for our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another week. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. And we have a Patreon now. So if you're interested in supporting the show, you can check out Patreon. We have merch, which is super weird for me right now. But also there's a monthly newsletter. There's, multiple different tiers that you can subscribe to keep up and sponsor the show. Thank you again for listening. And until next time, dear hearts, stay wild.